Erin versus Lukasz, Snorlax Stall versus Charizard EX, and you can see here Erin, nothing to his name currently, but he was a junior and a senior, took an extended break after that, and this is his first year back in Masters.
Yeah, containing his excitement, because I think he knows that this could be, if things are going his way, it's going to be a really long series.
I think he's staring off into the distance thinking, what will I do with my prize money?
I'm so happy this is being shown live to everyone right now, as we do pass over to Lukasz with a few more accomplishments to their name. A Malmo top 8, a few top 32 placements actually in Warsaw last year, so really enjoying the home turf, and is now rocking the flag for Poland in the final here.
That's something we've really got to mention here. The Polish community has developed so much in this last year. Having Warsaw Regional announced last season gave them an event to look forward to, and consequently they have ramped it up. And right now we are going into our final. The prize cards are being placed, and we'll find out whether Erin has an answer for Block Snorlax.
Well, Luminion V in the prizes, that's exactly where you want it. You don't want it in hand, you don't want it in play. So actually, that's the best possible outcome. Starts with a Charmander. We've actually got a game. Fantastic. Lukasz is kicking things off with a Mimikyu.
I can tell you're excited for this, Joe.
Well, we're playing.
I mean, you're a player of controlling archetypes in the past. You've dabbled.
I'll play anything. Yeah.
What is it like when you're playing these long tournaments where your win condition is atypical? You're going for that the stalling, or trying to deck out or take away options of your opponent.
It's always about knowing what resources the other archetypes have, what damage output is in their range, what attackers they can use, what tricks they can have up their sleeve, and it's really trying to mitigate that. You're almost using your 6 prize cards as lifelines. The game doesn't end in a normal tempo-based manner. You're just saying that I have 6 chances here, 6 possibilities to get my opponent down to nothing remaining. And I think that's what's going to be most important here.
And what is it that's made Snorlax Stall so impactful now that Paradox Rift has come out?
I think it's a combination of factors. It gains some big pieces. It's gained Countercatcher. This is absolutely massive. Previously, there was, of course, Boss's Orders and already the Erika's Invitation supporters in the deck list, but not having to use your supporter for the turn makes this archetype so much more aggressive at targeting down the resources of the opponent. You now have access to the likes of the Sydney supporter, which can catch the likes of Jet Energy and other switching cards, and Stadium Bouncers as well for Temple of Sinnoh that you play in your own deck list to work. It allows you to play Hand Disruption supporters and, of course, Misfortune Sisters, which are targeting the most crucial switch cards, which are the main ways around block.
And we see the Rotom V, the first option with the Nest Ball coming down to try and draw as many cards, knowing that the Charizard deck cannot do too much in this early stage, needs to try and evolve through a rare candy in a future turn. So a little bit of time to play with before Snorlax is needed. And why not build that hand up with some instant charges?
Well, the first question for Erin really is, well, there's a Mimikyu in my face right now. Do I even attempt to go for a Charizard early? Do I just evolve into Charmeleon over the next couple of turns and manually attach my way through this Mimikyu? It's something that you have to consider also because the damage output of Charizard EX scales based on the amount of prize cards your opponent's taken. Lukasz doesn't care about that. He's not going to be taking any prize cards. The only way you can manipulate the prize cards your own end is by using your 60 hit point Heat Tackle Charmander to knock your own Pokemon out. That would give Lukasz a prize card forced into his hand, essentially. And that would turn off Countercatcher for a number of turns. Maybe that opens an avenue for you then to possibly Iono at some point, reduce the hand size from Lukasz, who's going to constantly be expanding it with the Rotom V already developed on his board. So you've got to get a little bit creative as the Charizard player.
It's an interesting situation where you've got a lot of attackers that you can have in play. You can have that Charizard EX, you can have the Radiant Charizard. All of them can attack throughout the turn, so you're not worried about overbenching those. But there comes the point where you mentioned the Erika Invitation, and if you discard any Pokemon, you've got to worry about Echoing Horn.
Echoing Horn. Yeah, even filling up your bench. Sometimes there can be the Avery in the deck list as well to free up the board space. Then you can open up your own Echoing Horn for you. So there's just so many ways, so many game plans that Lukasz has in the deck list. As the Battle VIP pass right now, we're seeing a lot of searching of outs here for Erin. Very understandable. This is the climax of our tournament here, the final, and any misstep can be massively punished by Lukasz. So just limiting to Radiant Charizard at this stage. It's a fantastic attacker, even though you're having to pass every now and then because Radiant Charizard cannot chain its attacks. It has a high enough damage output threshold that you can knock out even Bravery Charmed Mimikyu and Snorlax. So you basically go for a slow approach here by just manually attaching to Charizard over and over again to get through those prizes. And you know that Lukasz is going to come back with counter catches and whatnot, but at least this is a board state he can manage right now.
One of the advantages for Erin is they do have the Pidgeot V with the Vanishing Wings.
Yep.
They're going to have to be a bit worried about the potential of Spiritomb, Festive Misfortune, which is in Lukasz's list,
Yep.
there to try and disrupt other Snorlax matchups, and of course in matchups where they rely on things like the Pidgeot V, Vanishing Wings.
Even plays Crabominable V in the list as well, so even Vanishing Wings isn't enough. You could just get rid of the rest of their resources if they get down to that stage of the game. The Erika's Invitation is the pickup from Pokegear. It's a bit of a gamble at this stage. Erin hasn't drawn that many cards, so it's not exactly the ideal supporter for Lukasz, who hasn't been able to develop any Snorlax as of yet. Haven't been able to spy what else is in the hand, though.
I mean, you've got a bit of time, nothing too threatening to knock out the Mimikyu, but the extra advantage of Erika's Invitation is you do get to see the hand, so you know what you're working with.
Yep, no targets for the Erikas to bring any Pokemon into play. As you said, it helps Lukasz with his decision-making process, as we're going to see a Bravery Charmed Snorlax straight away, and it will be another instant charge from that Rotom V. Expect to hear instant charge a few times throughout this cast, because it's going to be almost always Lukasz's final action of the turn.
Another advantage of that Rotom V is a target for the Forest Sealstone to tutor out anything you need from your deck, so has been so key to so many of these Snorlax stall decks. A lot of people only playing one of them though, so if it were to be prized in any matchups, it could be quite bad. I've seen some Snorlax stall lists with 2 in, because it's just that important, and we've seen it was the first option taken by Lukasz with that Nest Ball. So the key to this matchup, and there was just a quick pass there from Erin, and they'll be straight back into Lukasz's side, giving him an opportunity to start developing all of those game plans we've spoken about. And that's really the worry here. If you give the Snorlax stall deck too much time, you can really create that lock.
Yeah, it's not only the fact that you have to be so cautious on your own end, that giving Lukasz time allows them to actually assemble combinations. They can get even more Snorlax developed. They can start getting towards some more supporter cards. But then we can start weaving in these Sydneys, weaving in other hand disruptors. Obviously, the Misfortune Sisters being the massive one.
These are instant charges as well.
More instant charges just means more draw power for Lukasz, more options. So having no pressure at all can't feel great for Erin right now.
Yeah, you end up getting a massive hand where you've got a directory of options. You're thinking, what do I choose? What's the right thing to do in this situation? So
often I've seen Lukasz sifting through 20+ cards in hand and just looking at one and thinking, yes, this is the perfect supporter for right now. I'll use this one. Because you don't do many actions with this archetype. Lukasz actually going for the early Iono here. Just wanted to recycle the hand, which is pretty interesting. I'm not sure what's so drastically important to get early. This might be just because you've seen 6 of the cards in Erin's hands had no Pokemon. What if I spin the wheel early with this Iono? I know I have instant charge as a backup plan. I want to start finding Erika's opportunities.
There was also Rare Candy plus Arven in there.
Yep.
So there would be a way to set up the Charizard EX, so perhaps worried about that too.
It will be an instant charge to end the turn and pass things over to Erin here. Let's see what the new hand has on offer. Just a pass, so not much.
Going to be a lot of that today.
Are we going to see a Misfortune Sisters at all this turn? I don't know if there were any in the hand. This is the issue. There is one escape rope in Erin's deck. That's his main out. He plays Boss's Orders as well, so you can get around block a few times, but it's still going to be a big problem, because in most situations, if there are going to be Boss's Orders, then it's a Mimikyu that comes into the active anyway, and that can still be an awkward Pokemon to get around. So
often you're using your Boss's Orders on the Rotom to be able to either knock it out to disrupt them or give you that opportunity to retreat in the turn. So weirdly, Boss's Orders is an out of the block Snorlax a lot of the time.
Because the block is only active once the Snorlax is in the active position, so pushing it back away, bringing up the Rotom gives you not only those additional prize cards more easily, it's going to try and put the block at bay so you can actually pay retreat out of certain Pokemon throughout the game.
And sometimes what we see when the Rotom V does get knocked out eventually is they never put it back into play, because it's done its job. It's got that early start going.
Yeah, good for you. You took your 2 prize cards. Now there's still the rest of the Snorlax to get through afterwards.
Is that just a straight pass again?
Yeah, we're seeing passes. Lukasz is going to try again with this Erika's Invitation. Again, no targets here. There are stage 2s. Oh, there is a Pidgey. Okay, so Pidgey is among them.
Pidgey can attack in this matchup.
Yep, and it's currently not being blocked either. It's still Mimikyu in the active, but the Water Energy is in hand, so Lukasz can initiate the block Snorlax lock now. Pidgey can attack. You can evolve it to Pidgeot and you can deal 120 damage every turn. It's not a lot, but it's honest work, and when you're in this situation, it's pretty much what you got to go for.
Bit of blustery wind.
Yeah, removing a stadium every now and then could be handy. but not so much in this matchup.
Another
Just going to be a
pass.
pass immediately.
Oh my, this is getting really tough now. The Misfortune Sisters, so effective at disrupting the decks that do have lots of switch outs. It's your main win condition to take away their
Hits,
options.
Super Rod among them, Counter Catcher as well as Lost Vacuum, forcing, of course, Erin to shuffle the rest back in. You can only target item cards with the Misfortune Sisters. The big hit, although Super Rod was a pretty massive one there, is going to be the Escape Rope. And if we can grab that, it's going to be a big problem.
The one switch out, the one way out of block Snorlax.
When will we respect Snorlax enough to play more?
I mean, we saw a Charizard EX deck playing the Minior as a one-card tech for the matchup.
There's also softer answers in the likes of Professor Churro Scenario, plus having Power Pad in your deck list, but even then these can get taken away from you via Misfortune Sisters, so it never feels great.
And that wasn't enough in the quarter-final, was it?
No, that's what Elliot actually had 3 outs in the deck list, playing Jet Energy, playing Escape Rope, and playing Professor Churro Scenario. But with the likes of Sydney every now and again, with just a constant amount of pressure with your hand disruptors and gusting back Pokemon, there's still just so many, you have so much time as Lukasz to undo any work being done by the Charizard player. The Silene here going to get a Misfortune Sisters back on top. I think that makes a ton of sense. It's the best way you can try and proactively target your opponent's deck, and once you take the rope out of the equation, it becomes a much simpler game for you.
Anything you Silene will be straight into your hand off the instant charge. And we see at this point,
here we go,
Rare
Fireworks.
Candy.
We can start going into Pidgeot. We can start quick searching some cards.
Exactly, that quick search, vital.
Yeah, so you can start attaching to your Pidgeot, but also, if you can quick search Escape Rope to your hand, it can't be taken away from you. It can't be misfortuned out of the deck either. So although these energy are going to be the first instincts for Erin, the only way you can actually protect your Escape Rope is by grabbing it to hand. So that must be something that we look at some point with these quick searches. He'll have time in a few turns.
So Pidgeot EX now going to have an energy on, so can start chaining attacks there, and that's where you start asking the question of Lukasz, can you chain the pennies in response and keep that pressure on? But the Misfortune Sisters, here we go. Will the Escape Rope be taken away? Ultimately, it is the best option off of a Misfortune Sister. Ultra Ball there, not too much to worry about. But of course, taking away cards, which will increase the speed of that deck out win condition.
That's right, and that is the ultimate goal for Lukasz here. Run your opponent out of cards, and it's just going to be the instant charge from Rotom once again. Erin can begin launching attacks. It's only 120 damage, as we said, but it is going to be helpful, no doubt. It's going to be a turn attachment of Fire Energy now, so we can get a swing in and start essentially making Lukasz use pennies rather than using these other disruptive supporters. In this case, it's going to be Boss's Orders onto Radiant Charizard.
We mentioned about the counter catchers being so key, but you do have to include some Boss's Orders for those early turns when the counter catcher is not activated, and that's an exact example of it. So that Radiant Charizard, its ability, not going to be very useful here to try and lower the cost of that attack. It will be the 5 energy in full required to start getting attacks of Combustion Blast off.
You really associate Radiant Charizard with being efficient. You normally just swing 1 energy on, and in the late game it becomes incredible. But when you're up against an archetype such as Lukasz's, it's 5. That's a lot more.
I mean, you can get a lot of energy in play very quickly with Charizard. You can get that 3 from your Charizard EX.
Yep. And then manually attach as well. That would put you 1 away from using Combustion Blast.
So I guess on this turn, just the single attachment would be key here, just to make sure that you're in range of that, the Infernal Rain plus manual attach. But then this is another thing that we see often with Snorlax Stall, is the more energy that comes down into play, the more threat there is of blocking something in the active where energy is the only way to keep it relevant.
And I think there was also 2 prized Fire Energy for Erin as well, which is going to be really harsh, because you can't actually retreat any of these energy off your Pidgeot. They're just stuck there now, because you have free retreat. So if ever you do have the chance, you're not going to remove these energy. The Super Rod's already gone anyway, so we are really limited with the amount of resources left already for Erin here.
Yeah, the Turo would be a way in some versions of Charizard EX, but not present in Erin's list. And Imagine making it all the way to the final. You feel confident. You've beaten the LAIC champion, Yuho, and then you come up against Tord Reklev, manage to beat him on the feature table in the quarterfinals. You discover a new deck and you work it out on the fly. And then suddenly, your weakest matchup is waiting for you in the final. Snorlax Stall has done the journey through Charizard EX all the way to this stage, and is waiting here to try and show exactly why it's a stronger matchup.
I mean, this was pretty much expected in the deck building process. You can choose whether or not you care about Snorlax enough to actually tech against it. How many games would Erin have won by top decking cards that aren't Professor Churro's scenario in different other matchups? So just having more consistency, you can never argue with it. He just happens to be in the situation where he would love to have more outs in the deck list. Lukasz is able to penny now and undo the little poke of 120 damage that Pidgeot did earlier on a previous turn, and we're back charging again with Rotom V. There's still so many prizes to take for Erin, and looking like Lukasz is able to amass such a large hand size already here.
Yeah, looking back through Lukasz's journey, played a lot of Urshifu and Teleon, which is another great matchup for it, as well as a few Charizards along the way. I think there's 3 there. 2 Gardevoir early on, and a mishmash of all sorts of other archetypes. But finally, the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final will be all Charizard.
Yep, you'll love to see that. There's a Team Yell's Cheer getting back some of these crucial supporter cards. This is how you prevent yourself from decking out. We have a combination of Team Yell's Cheer, Palpads, and Silenes. By looping these, you comfortably make sure that even though you've drawn a card for turn and you've used Instant Charge to get pretty much every resource in your hand, you're never going to struggle. Sometimes there are some really wacky combinations of coin flips that could put you in danger, but it's extremely rare, I would say.
And this is why the draw-pass approach is being taken by Erin here. Create as much time as possible for his deck. You don't want to start playing cards down willy-nilly and seeing all those resources disappear. And
ultimately, there are situations where if Lukasz draws so many cards, they're then committing themselves to a Yell Cheer or committing themselves to a Silene just to prevent themselves from decking out. So you actually block their own use of supporter at times as well if they get overzealous with their draw throughout the game. There could be a situation where you just have enough in hand and just say that, yeah, you can pass for a little bit more, I'll just draw 1 per turn instead.
To anyone right now who's thinking, I want to play Snorlax Stall, you're seeing exactly how it's done. If this interests you, make sure you get stuck in, find this list and give it a go. But you can see how much skill is required to play the deck. With that hand size being massive, you have so many options every turn. Navigating the problem, I think the way Ben describes it is like you're solving a puzzle live, trying to work out how to control the game in a way that you're able to win it eventually. And that's exactly what's going on right here.
And this is one tough puzzle. This is a real challenge. I think we're even starting to see a lot more Misfortune Sisters here. These are kind of the biggest supporters, really. If you can catch the escape rope, it's monstrous. Rare Candy, not bad, honestly, when there's still a Charmander. It stops some of the burst acceleration from Erin here.
That was that Charmeleon in the first hand that got Ionoed away, so there is...
It's available.
There is the ability to evolve naturally.
Just take a little longer as we pass back over to Erin. I don't think Erin's even been quick searching that much. I think it's just been a lot of draw pass, actually. If you're not quick searching for outs, what are you really waiting for? Are you waiting for your opponent to get to the bottom of their deck before initiating prize trade, so it's harder for them to use supporter cards? Well, possibly that's the line.
The moment you take that first prize card, you are then in a position where...
Yeah, you unlock the counter catcher.
Yeah.
So waiting so patiently to get rid of, well, the deck of Lukasz, even though Lukasz is the controlling player. Erin is trying to identify a position where they can force Lukasz into an awkward spot.
As you see Lukasz shuffling through that hand, working out what's the next disruptive card.
Was the escape rope even in Erin's hand?
I don't think so. Was it in the prizes? I don't think it was, right?
It's definitely in the deck. I'm stunned that we haven't seen the escape rope come to hand, if it hasn't already.
I mean, is he just relying on the deck out of Lukasz and hoping that that is enough for him? Well, we see the passes back and forth now. We're at that stage.
I mean, Lukasz has got all the way to the final stage, and I feel like he's not going to fall for any of these tactics. I think he's feeling pretty comfortable and is going to keep diligently. You know, double heads also helps out. You can get the Yell Cheer back quite comfortably. If you want to, you can Peonia and get the remaining cards in your prize cards that you didn't have access to available to you as well.
I haven't seen a PAL pad used yet either.
Yeah. I mean, even though you are flipping coins of Silene, it can get a little bit rough at times. Just the ratios are so good with you because you can Team Yell Cheer and PAL pad back Team Yell Cheer and get more uses of Silene. You have such a good safeguard around it.
Yeah, we see the 2 PAL pads in hand there.
Yeah.
So really safe getting yourself decked out here. You even have the option of the Pidgeot V to put back into the deck.
That's right. We see our boss's orders action at last, but just a pass.
Calm down, Joe. Calm down. Nothing too crazy here.
Crazy turn. There goes a switch cart for Lukasz. Let's see a Peonia now as well.
So that's the full prize cards being checked here if wanted.
Yeah. This archetype actually has full access to their prize cards thanks to the use and reuse of this Peonia. And it also means that Lukasz can get rid of 6 of the least helpful cards available to him so that he never sees them again, essentially.
I believe there's a Battle VIP pass.
That's definitely a candidate.
Yeah, I think the 3 are just going straight back in. It's like, have a look, don't need them, you can go back, pass.
Yeah, these all sound like great choices. Battle VIP pass, Temple of Sinnoh, Arven, none of these are too handy in the matchup. So let's just pass things back over to Erin here. It's going to be another boss's orders. Let's see if this can do anything.
I mean, maybe
Another
Erin's confident in the fact that their Pidgeot V will be able to play out the rest of the game. We saw that Spiritomb is in the prizes, but through a few PAL pads, getting the Peonia back, you can just get the Spiritomb out as and when needed.
I mean, Erin has already seen that Lukasz does have water energy in the deck, so must assume that Crabominable gets around it anyway. So
true.
It's just a matter of Silenes to get back the water energy, get back a switch cart at this stage, and yeah, the Crabominable will still close the game. We've seen 2 Peonia, so Erin knows that there's no issue with prizing at this stage. Yeah,
so you've got either the Spiritomb out if you need it, or the Crabominable out, whichever one is easiest to get a hold of in those final turns. And passes galore.
Here comes another Misfortune Sisters. Lukasz weaving one in. Let's see if we can discard anything handy. There goes Battle VIP Pass and Ultra Ball.
That's just increasing the speed of this deck out.
Sure is. The discard pile is pretty full, despite Erin having played very few of those cards, just from a number of Misfortune Sisters over a number of turns. Got an absolute catalogue of cards in Erin's hand, but still no action at all. Had quick search the entire game, as we see a Silene flipping here.
Oh, that one's gone off the screen, but no action.
Looks like it's a double tails, straight into the PAL pad.
You can get it back, nice and easy.
And this is where the combination allows you to be pretty infinite. You're not guaranteed, but with PAL pad and Silene and Yell Cheer, most importantly, getting back the Silenes to reload again, and then the Silene can get the PAL pads, and then you start the loop over. You have a pretty good chance of never decking yourself out. We're going to see another Silene here. Things get wacky if we see a lot of tails in combination with one another. But there's one heads, and it's almost always PAL pad. If you feel pretty confident, you can grab Switch Cart or Water Energy and go more proactive with Crabominable. But I feel like you're always winning this game if you just never break your Silene loop. And PAL pad was, in the end, the right choice.
So Lukasz, the local player in the finals, representing Poland against our new returning player, Erin, a junior and senior coming back for first year back into Masters. What a performance from him to make it all the way to the final. Unfortunately, finding one of his toughest matchups on the big stage. Lukasz knows exactly how to navigate this after dismantling 2 Charizard EX previously. And we're seeing exactly why that is. So much stability on the board for Lukasz, and trying to find a way to begin the prize race for Erin.
Here comes boss number 3. That's all 3 boss's orders for Erin now. And just a pass again.
Okay, he's putting on a show for us, teasing us with the Rotom.
I think it's really reasonable for Erin to figure out the counts of Lukasz's deck and just navigate how Lukasz plays as well. I think there's actually decent diversity with how players actually play this deck list. So seeing Lukasz go for an Arven here, just as their supporter use for the turn, just to see what's available is always fine. And just passing things back over, because you're going to have to try and find a way somehow, and sometimes it's down to how your opponent plays rather than what's in the deck list.
I mean, we've spoken about it before. This downloading of your opponent's deck is so important to work out the counts, work out how they're playing it, and that's exactly what's going on right now for Erin. Next game, if they're able to get a knockout, as you've mentioned previously, that one knockout could be enough to win the third game, right? So if they're able to get a quick game 2 through an unfortunate start for Lukasz, it then quickly jumps in favor of the deck that takes prizes.
Yeah, Erin may not be too entertained right now and is kind of just sitting through, going through a lot of the motions, but they know full well that they have win conditions, and it may not be this game, it may be next game, and that's all it takes.
If they go into game 2 and manage to pull it off, they will be in the driver's seat going into game 3, and it would be similar to the story we saw before this final, that Whale Lord on the wall. And this is something that's happened throughout history with control decks. They find it so difficult when there's a lot more time on the clock in the top 8s. How many times have we seen Sander dominating through Swiss and then making it to top 8 and struggling? And
it's by virtue of the top cut rules, more often than not.
And we'll see if that affects Lukasz here. But if game 2 goes similar to this one, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Erin to get it. But right now, just playing out, working out what he's up against and processing the matchup fully.
We have seen an Iono from Erin, which resets both players' hands and decks. Erin does get 6 cards. Lukasz draws back into the supporters that were put there with Yelchin. We see a double heads from Silene. Now that gives you the opportunity to weave back in switch card as well, if you like, as the team Yelchin. To, again, safeguard yourself. You can. Well, it's going to be double switch cards, so these Snorlax are going to be around for a little while longer. And you can re-establish that block. Hasn't really needed block, actually, because the Radiant Charizard's already got such high retreat cost.
So the Rotom instant charge can begin again, thanks to the Iono. So there's plenty of cards to draw into, but of course the Silene will decide exactly what is on that top deck. Snorlax re-established, block begins, and so the cycle continues.
It's going to be a Misfortune Sisters again. And where is the escape rope is the big question. There it goes. That's massive. A huge hit from Lukasz. Erin's one actual switch card in his deck list has finally been discarded. And that's got to feel good for Lukasz now. Block has been established. All the boss's orders have been played. The escape rope has now been removed. What can Erin do from this position?
I mean, I think you really summarized it perfectly, that this isn't... Erin's not necessarily trying to win this game. He's trying to work out how it's played. And then
here we go. I see a target for the Erica's invitation as well now. Manaphy in the active. Sorry to cut in.
No, he's been doing that all weekend long.
We have, yeah. I mean, we haven't had much action. So when we see a card actually played that means something, it's you got to talk about it.
Riveting entertainment here from the Snorlax stall. And it's kind of, it divides the community a little bit, these kinds of archetypes. I'm sure there's lots of people in chat right now who are loving seeing this, and then there's other people who just want to see prize cards being taken. But ultimately, this keeps a lot of decks in check. It forces decks to play out. So we saw the Minior before in a Charizard EX deck, and we've seen a lot of the successful lists in our format right now with Jet Energies and plenty of switch outs. But in this particular matchup, it kind of forces Charizard EX to adapt.
Yeah, it really does. It has to play so differently to its usual game plan, which is wait for the opponent to move and then you just naturally become much more powerful. And possibly at this stage, I'm starting to think for Erin, is it even just a war of attrition mentally? Lukasz is the one having to think through every single turn so much more than Erin now. Erin is draw passing. Erin has no win condition this game, but he's going to make Lukasz go through every one of these actions and go make sure they don't put themselves into an awkward position and make sure they play perfectly for another half hour. And maybe at that point, Lukasz is going to be a little bit frazzled, a little bit mentally fatigued, and that could give you a window of opportunity. So
I mean, we've seen
why not?
A fair few times. The finals is when you're most exhausted. You've been playing, you know, all weekend long. Just 9 rounds of Swiss in day one is enough to tire out most players. And these guys, not only are they fatigued from that long weekend of games, but it's the fact they're on the big stage, they're in the final, and as you mentioned, it forces more mistakes out. And so maybe at this stage, Erin's win condition is literally human error.
We've all had these games on PTGO when you're too stubborn to give the game away to the Snorlax player.
It's
PTG Live.
I know,
you know, Control's been around for a while, okay, and so have I. A double tails for Silene there. Yeah, all right. It's going to be a double Silene Tails, but it's not a huge issue. You'll start seeing some draw passing back and forth now.
Well, let's see if that human error does come out, or whether Lukasz will show exactly why he's made it to the final. That hand, as thick as you'll see in most games, and the final card going into hand, and it is that team Yelchin.
You're joking. It's 3 supporters coming back in.
I mean, that's why it's in the deck.
Resetting Silene, Misfortune Sisters, and another Misfortune Sisters.
So is that Silene going to need to be one of those heads?
Nope, because we can Palpad back Team Yelcher. we have a lot of coin flip tails to go, my friend.
What? I mean, I'm testing your mathematical knowledge here. What is the chances?
Shall I get scribbling?
We've got some time here. So
I've got the time. I've got the time.
I'm giving Joe some homework real quick.
I don't have the inclination. That's the problem. It's a lot of coins, right? Surely.
Hand it over to me for a bit, and you do some maths real quick.
Oh, it's not worth it. We'll get excited when we see enough tails in a row. They have to be consecutive tails as well, is the key here.
Big numbers needed.
Here we go. Gonna be a draw for the turn. Here's a Silene. Let's see some coin flips.
Oh, it's heads.
Well, that's sad.
There you go. There's a heads and a tails.
It's gonna be Palpad. We'll restart the calculus.
Well, Joe. Well, we've got time to play with here. As you can see, 45 minutes left in this final.
Do you want to play some noughts and crosses? I've got a pen.
I mean, look, we've got to give them the respect.
Here we go!
And that's it. The lock has begun. Erin recognises it, knows that it is impossible to win this game, and consequently, Lukasz will get game one. And now we get to see that early turns, the scary point for any control player. Can you set up in time? Lukasz is in the driver's seat now, knows it's a strong matchup, but if it starts badly, suddenly it flips completely against him. Yeah,
as comical as that game was, and as in control as Lukasz was, this is still very much in the balance. We pretty much gave up on that first game for Erin. Their start was so slow, let's be honest. They never really had the tempo required to actually cause a headache for the controlling players. They draw too many cards, they have too many responses. And for the Charizard, you really have to come out the gates quickly, I think, if you're going to have a chance here. And this game is the critical one. If we can see a rip-roaring start from Erin, they have a really good shot of winning this game. And then due to the nature of a finals, and we need to have a winner, the next game has to conclude, or doesn't actually have to conclude. It's going to be based on time, and then whoever's ahead on prize cards will end up winning. And that means that Erin only has to take one prize card. That being said, Erin actually didn't take a prize card in that first game, so still a lot of work to be done here. We're going to see some prize cards.
Nothing too crazy
The Peonia was in the prizes, actually. I think there's only one Peonia in the deck list for Lukasz.
Well, thankfully, none of the other prizes look too worrying there.
The boss's orders was in there, but yeah, nothing else too dangerous. That's the only thing. It means that we can't access everything.
I like this from Erin, forcing Lukasz to go first.
He had his natural Battle VIP pass. He plays one copy.
One?
Yeah, you just Arven for it. Or just have it in your opening hand. And that's it. We see a concession from Erin.
My goodness.
Sparing us the time. Lukasz is your Gdansk regional champion. He blocked everyone in his path and he got the victory.
The local boy coming through on top with the block Snorlax. Poland has grown so much in these last few years. And you can see they've all stayed around to support their countrymen.
Why did they stay to watch that?
Because they wanted to support Lukasz, Joe.
Yes, correct, exactly.
Who is now champion now.
We had to crown a winner, and we now have a champion here in Gdansk. I'm terrified, honestly, because if we see more block Snorlax as an archetype, it's certainly viable. It got top 8 at the Latin American International Championships. It's taken a regional victory. We pretty much have to start adapting our decks at this point.